Good day and welcome to Interface, where we come face to face with issues in our society. In today's program, we have the Managing Director of Jamaica Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, JSPCA, Pamela Lawson. Good to have you and welcome to Interface. Now, Ms. Lawson, what are the issues that we see? What's the importance of non-indigenous species to Jamaica?
Well, at the moment, I know it's been taken a bit of a priority. And the thing is, non-indigenous meaning it's not native to our island. So the risks involved, of course, are huge. There are many issues, whether it be human or to other animals or to our flora, fauna, many things which can only be found in Jamaica, because you've upset the balance of nature. Man has a wonderful ability to do that. So people are worried, quite rightly so, especially when we're seeing the illegal pet trade, which is booming worldwide. When we hear stories of in Florida and the USA, you know, it's terrible.
Okay. We know that there are many issues. We can relate to issues in the Amazon that are affecting wildlife. Issues in, I understand that the Amazon, they affect both wildlife and persons, both plants and plants are dying. Their habitats, the places where these animals live, they're losing them as well. So we understand and we have to recognize that there are things that happen globally and internationally that affect Jamaica. These things, they may seem far, but they do have effects on us. And these non-native creatures, non-native plants, they do affect us. What are some of the threats to animal life?
Well, like I said earlier, when we have a non-indigenous species coming into Jamaica or anywhere in the world, you upset the balance. So when we have some animals, if they have no natural predators, they're allowed to multiply. They also can affect your animal or livestock, your animal life. If they have diseases or conditions that would affect our animals, we worry about the fact that Jamaica are proud that we're considered rabies-free. Rabies, people always think of it being, you know, the rabid kind. There are different types of rabies. But for Jamaica to be hit with something like rabies would have huge implications on our export markets. You have things like mad cow disease. You have TB. There are so many illnesses that can be brought into our country that would affect both man and beast. So we have to worry about our borders and the animals that are being brought in, smuggled in illegally. I mean, I don't know if you recall a few months ago where a boat was found with hundreds of animals on it. Birds, reptiles, animals in general. Of course, everything was put down. Half of them were dying because the smugglers don't care about the well-being. They bring in half a shipment.
So where was this? Where did this take
I gather
place?
that was South Coast.
South Coast, okay.
So they were actually, the boat was caught and seized by the Jamaica Defence Coast Guard, I remember. And of course, NEPA and Veterinary Services Division had to go straight in and put down the animals humanely.
Okay, and you spoke about the effects on us. What are the threats to them? We know their wildlife, their habitat. Are there any extenuating factors that affect them as well?
Well, the thing is, they're not even, depending on where they're coming from, they may not adapt. They may suffer, they may starve to death, they may create havoc. I mean, we just don't know, it depends on the species. But I mean, reptiles in particular, they get into our systems. We are proud of the fact that we have no venomous reptiles. It just takes one person to bring in the wrong thing, and we have a problem. Jamaicans aren't used to having to deal with a venomous animal. They're not used to having to deal with a large animal that can cause serious harm or damage. The most we worry about is our crocodiles.
Okay, and how are we coping with the lionfish?
Actually, the lionfish, we are one of the few countries that are doing very well with it.
Oh,
A lot of Jamaican men feel that it does a lot for their nature.
yes.
So they eat it in large quantities.
So we're coping with it. It's not affecting us.
It still does have some effect, of course it does. I mean, the lionfish is one of the most, giving the most problems in this region.
Yes.
But I think Jamaica on a whole is doing a lot better than many countries in trying to tackle the problem.
Okay, you mentioned earlier about the borders. What are the reasons that we should monitor our borders? You were explaining about what we take in because it's not us and we're not used to certain things. But the reasons we monitor our borders is that it doesn't affect plants and animals. Tell me about the invasive species.
Well, like I said, at the moment we are facing, because of the illegal pet trade, we are seeing a higher number of animals being sighted or captured that shouldn't be here. I have, for example, at JSPCA, we have 3 ball pythons. 2 of them were caught. I went and retrieved them. They were found in people's home yards or on property. They're not a great risk, but it's still not an indigenous species. Okay, we know about the monkey. We've had many sightings in different areas of monkeys. They're very popular pets, especially the smaller varieties, and but monkeys are primates. Let's be honest. What they get, they may not even show symptoms. We will get.
Oh. But before we get to the monkey situation, our viewers may not know how prevalent the illegal pet trade is.
It is huge. And it is huge worldwide. It's a multi-billion-dollar empire, that is. It's, no matter what country you go to, it is a huge, huge business. People see animals and they say, oh, that is so cute. I want a koala. I want this. They get it.
Wow. What are some of the animals that are found here, a part of the illegal pet trade?
A lot of reptiles. The iguanas. The green iguana is quite common in South America. So most of our animals are coming in from South America or Central America. So we're seeing a lot of reptiles, particularly the iguanas and the snakes. Like I said, the monkeys are now going. Birds, certain birds are smuggled in quite heavily. And remember, there's always the risk of things like avian flu, such things. So it's whatever becomes the flavor of the day. And you know how we are over here. We just get, certain animal becomes popular, there's just a ton load.
Everybody wants to
Everybody
get
wants one.
All right, so you mentioned there's an article dated July 7th about the monkey on the loose. Tell us about that experience, because some of our viewers may not have heard about it or may not have seen the reports on it.
Well, I'll be honest, by the time I was notified early in the morning to say that there was a monkey in the person's yard, sent a few photos. By the time I reached their home, those pictures and footage had gone viral. Everybody nearly had seen those pictures and videos.
Power of social media.
Social media is awesome.
So tell us about it. I read the article and she was explaining that the monkeys were in their yards, eating the bananas.
Eating the mangoes. When I went there, I did see the monkey. It was sitting quite high up, eating away, not a care in the world. And moving totally through the trees. I didn't realize that there was just such a beautiful line of trees going all the way through Jack's Hill, going up the hill. There was no way of catching her. I'm personally not going to try and catch it. And monkeys can be quite, as sweet as this little one is, I wouldn't handle her. And there's also the risk of, like I said, of diseases or infection. And they're quick. They will bite. They bite really well. So wouldn't be touching it. So we went around. We enlisted also the help of Hubzu. We set traps in the trees and not on the ground, because she obviously wasn't coming onto the ground. and especially in her favorite places. And by the next morning, there she was, sitting in a cage.
What type of monkey was it?
She looks a bit like a black and white capuchin, but I am waiting for confirmation.
Oh,
And like I said, that is coming from South America.
wow.
And it was obviously somebody's pet. She's very good-natured from afar, very good-natured, and not worried about people. Not frantic at all.
So it was. So that would have been a part of the pet trade then.
Definitely. She was somebody's pet.
Wow.
Whether she got away or they couldn't manage her, that's the next thing. And they just open the cage. It happens. It's more than they can manage. Let them out.
And you guys caught the monkey, you said, yesterday?
Yes.
Yesterday. What was that experience like?
Well, once the animal was captured, because of the biosecurity, we called the Veterinary Services Division immediately. Mm-hmm. They came straight in, wore masks, etc., protective gear, and they climbed up the tree and collected her in her cage. We safely secured the cage, and then she was transported, because she will have to undergo testing as well for our own well-being, because she has been loose. And she does appear to have been loose for quite a little while.
Okay, so she's gone for further testing.
She will have to do blood tests, etc., and it's up to the Veterinary Services Division and to NEPA.
About what they
the
do.
outcome of the animals.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So when they do the test, they find out if she has any diseases, what happens, and then they decide.
More, basically the welfare of our people and our animals is paramount. It is paramount. So she is in quarantine, and she is being dealt with by those two organizations.
All right. We'll take our first break. Interface, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Interface, where we get to the issues affecting our society. I have with me Managing Director of Jamaica's Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, JSPCA, Pamela Lawson. Earlier before the break, we were talking about the border control. So I wanted to know, have there been any improvements in border control in Jamaica?
Well, I can't say for sure. Mm-hmm. We are getting a lot more reports from the different agencies. Mm-hmm. So, and we would not necessarily get most of those reports. It would go through to NEPA or to the Veterinary Services Division. But the ones that we personally are getting, I usually will contact the relevant agencies, because I do know that there are certain risks involved.
Mm-hmm. So do you think enough is being done at the policy level?
I think they're doing what they can with what they have. There's always more that could be done. I mean, for example, the US alone spends nearly $140 billion, according to the UN, just fighting against for non-invasive, for non-indigenous species coming into the borders.
Wow.
That's just the US. It is such a global problem, because man has become so, the mobility of man, we're moving all over the place. They keep saying that the world no longer is, we can go from one place to the other in a few hours. Mm-hmm. So, and we do. We're traveling far more frequently. As such, people also bringing in, it's not just animals, plants, it's seeds, byproducts. All of these things have an effect. People think that customs or the different agencies are being difficult when they don't allow you to bring in certain products. It's not.
So do you believe, is there a particular threat that by any animal or plant that's affecting anywhere else in the world, if that would come to Jamaica, what would happen?
You could cause famine. For example, our produce alone, if we brought in, you hear about the certain beetles that are causing problems with the crops. You'll hear a different, fungus, etc. Mm-hmm. People do not realize the huge implications of when you bring a cutting of a plant, you could be transporting insects, you could be transporting mites, you could be transporting a disease for plants. When we had gotten hit by the blight and we lost our coconut crops, or we lose this, it has huge implications on our socio-economic welfare. That's what people need to understand. Everything has an effect.
Can you name one disease or that's plaguing another?
Well, I can give you an idea first with even just animals. You remember the white-tailed deer that are in the Blue Mountains? The prolific breeders. Okay, everybody loves Bambi.
Yeah.
But there's no predator. So they are multiplying. They're eating crops. They're reaching up into the Blue Mountains, and we have a lot of flora and fauna that are only found here. They're not particular. They will eat anything and everything. And in itself, the farmers are having a problem. They're losing their crops, and which is why I know there was a bit of a public uproar when NEPA had said they have no problem issuing permits to hunt them. It's the only enemy they have is man.
Yes. Do you have any ideas of the numbers?
We don't, but we know they're sightings. They're stretching all across Portland, hitting into certain sections of St. Mary, coming up into St. Andrew, because the Blue Mountains go all the way over, don't they?
Yes.
So they're a huge problem. They got out from Hurricane Gilbert.
Oh, wow.
And they've been a huge problem now. They've become a huge problem. And when you speak to international agencies about white-tailed deer infestation or problem with them, they just shake their head and say, you have a problem.
I remember when you touched St. Mary, I remember the fungus affecting bananas.
Exactly. Who knows how that came in or how it became a problem. Like I said, we have the beetles that affect the potatoes, the crop. All of these things, they come from somewhere. If we didn't have it before, we have to wonder how we got it. Inevitably, people go to farms or whatever, abroad, and they can bring in these things. When we have outbreaks, I remember when there was an outbreak in the UK of foot and mouth within the livestock industry. You couldn't even go on a train from one section to the other without walking through dips, because the government had to take action to stem the spread.
And just to clarify, that's the threat of the fungus disease on bananas.
No, that was for foot and mouth. But I mean, even with the stem, what you do is you literally just quarantine an area off, and you have to just wipe it out. If you don't stop it, you can't stop spread.
Oh.
Could you imagine Jamaica, a small country like this, being hit by anything because somebody has inadvertently brought in something, and we can't produce our own crops, or our livestock are all dying, our birds, our chicken industry is wiped out. These are all real. These are real threats.
Wow. So what are the standards of animal care in Jamaica?
Generally, would it be, I think livestock industry is doing much better. The pet industry is booming, like I said. We are seeing so many more people coming into the clinics, and with such a wide variety of animals. I mean, I'm personally not into rats, but they'll come in with their white rats.
Wow.
Though I'm, like I said, not too fond, but I know we'll find one of our vets to go and deal with it. But we're seeing a variety. We see iguanas, we see dogs, cats, birds, rabbits, many types of reptiles, turtles. You name it. The pet industry is really booming. Even with people going into what we call gated communities and they're not supposed to have a pet. They'll have their birds, they'll have their reptiles or their cats. And cats are really not supposed to be there, but they do. And that's what it is. People need, I think people are finding a need to have animals more in their life and be part of their life. And it's a good thing because it makes a more compassionate society. Our laws dictate that you are required to give food, water, and shelter. Our laws are very old and do not really apply so much to pets. It really deals with cattle, goats, pigs.
Oh.
They're old. My nickname for it is a plantocracy law because it was done in the days of the plantation owners. So only a horse and a cow has value because that was what the wealthy plantation owners had. The poor people had the goats and the pigs. So the rights of those animals are much less. Dogs and cats, basic. Food, water, shelter. Doesn't say how much. A tree can be a shelter.
Yeah. So that law needs to be updated.
Hugely. And now that we're having so many issues with dangerous dogs as well, all of our laws in reference to animals need to be looked at and amended.
Are there any plans to do that?
That's a government decision, not mine.
So that would be something for the government to look at.
And I'm afraid, just like everything in life, nothing will possibly be done until a situation arises where there's serious public health or welfare issues.
All right, so tell us about the work being done at JSPCA.
Well, usually what we do is we have got a veterinary clinic that helps to fund the work that we do. We've had a bit of a heavy week this week. We had the cow that was hit down on Mona. We had to be renting a flatbed to go and get him off of the main road. I've never seen so many people so concerned about an animal. But I guess when you see a beautiful, red pole cow right on the side of Mona Road by Mona High School, they can't help but see it. It can't get up. It's alive. And the thing is, it's hard to move a 900-pound animal. And we got hundreds of calls for 3 days. And it wasn't that we weren't doing anything. The owner was identified. He committed to remove the animal Saturday. Nothing happened. Sunday, couldn't get any help at all. And Monday, between the Veterinary Services Division and the Director of Veterinary Services, myself, and a couple of volunteers, we were able to get that cow up, to a point, onto the flatbed, and get him moved to somewhere of safety and try and treat him. But it's been, like I said, between the cow, the monkey. There was another cow yesterday. There was a horse in Portmore yesterday. I don't think people understand the amount of work that we do. And when we fail to respond within 5 minutes of a phone call, I know people get upset. But if we don't have the funding, we do not get the support, then we can only do what we can. And so the veterinary clinic is what pays my staff, pays to feed all the animals that we have in the shelter. We do an adoption program. All animals have to be spayed or neutered before they leave us, which means they're surgically altered, so they cannot reproduce. It all costs money.
So the veterinary clinic is what funds the...
It is, and yet if somebody comes in with no money and they genuinely show concern and for their well-being of their animal, we won't turn them away either. We turn away no one.
So is there any other source of funding that you desire or
I'd love a windfall. That would be lovely. But no, we accept, the government already has a lot on their plate. We also remove all animals from the hospitals, children's homes, government agencies, etc., without charge. Because we know that there are some who need the help. We help the police, we help the military. We basically, anything to do with an animal, the first place people call is JSPCA.
Anything to do from cows?
Monkeys, dogs, cats, yes.
All of them.
They call us. And we try to do what we can with what we have.
All right, so we're going to take another break. When we return, we'll hear more about the work that JSPCA is doing. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Interface. I'm Kimberly Broderick. We're here with the Managing Director of JSPCA, Pamela Lawson. Earlier before the break, we're discussing the work that JSPCA has been doing. Tell us more about the work that's not being funded. Do you receive sponsorships, like would persons come and donate?
Oh yes, definitely. We get people who would donate maybe goods and stuff. We do have companies who help support us in many ways. I mean, we have a summer program. We get a lot of children. Most of the children do their internship or their community service program. And so throughout the year, many of the schools require the children to do community service. And during the summer, we like to have a lot more than full-time, get their hours done. And many companies come together and help. We like the children to all be on the same level. So we'd like to give them a little breakfast, lunch, so that we know that those who have and will still be able to have food and get taken care of properly. Because they come from every section of society. And so it's important when they're with us, they're all on the same level.
Yeah.
So we're quite grateful to quite a few companies that help provide us with food for them during the summer programs. We're also from the vet school in Trinidad, which is a part of UE. We get our vet interns and that, UTEC, CASE. So we have a lot of people that pass through our doors on an annual basis, not just animals. We're an internship facility. We go into the schools. We do education. So we do get some money here and there, or most of the time it is goods, which I'm not turning away. And we basically, as they would say, we turn our hand and make fashion.
But you do require financial support.
We would like financial support, but we just accept that whatever we need, we have to earn it.
All right, so take us through a day-to-day life in JSPCA.
Bit of chaos. We're open 7 days a week. My staff actually sometimes, most of us will do 2 or 3 jobs.
Wow.
Most of us, and most of us can do more. So our day starts from 8 a.m. and we finish by 6. Like I said, we're there even on Sundays from 9 to 1. So we don't get really a break. And even when there's a public holiday, we still have to open, if not to the public. We still have animals to treat, medicate, care for, feed, water. It's a lot of work. We constantly have, probably over 120, 150 dogs and another 100 and something cats. We got turtles, we got rabbits. You name it, we've had something there one time or another. So they have to be taken care of. So it's 7 days a week, 365. Our vets, they too have long hours, long days. And I know there's always more that people would like us to do. We've had clients say, well, why don't you open 24 hours a day? Takes money, because you've got to have the staff, and we just don't. There's 35 of us in total, and that is from Portland Point to Negril Point.
Oh. Wow.
We have a small office in Mobay, we have one in Portmore, and we have one in Kingston. And that includes our vehicle, the one driver. Every report for an animal hit down on the road, as long as it's alive, they have to go and get it. There are people with their animals who are sick, can't get them to the clinic. We have to pick them up. There's a lot involved. We run the clinic, we run the shelter, we do adoptions, we do surgeries all day. It's a lot of work.
Tell us about the adoption.
Our adoption process is quite simple. It's probably one of the easiest ones in the world. I've worked in large institutions in the UK and that before, and it's the owners are the ones who are under examination and have to pass stringent tests. Not so much here. We ask you to come in, have a look at what we have available. You choose an animal, you sign up paperwork. You will not get the animal though the same day unless it is already neutered. If it has not had surgery and surgically altered, it will not go. So we give you a date for collection. You pay a very nominal adoption fee. I mean, for puppies, $1,500. The surgery cost me far more than that.
But why though?
I do believe that people have to give a little something, but I also don't want to make it out of reach for people to be able to have a pet, no matter what their circumstances, as long as they can give it love, some food, the adequate food and water. I'm good, and shelter, yeah.
Why is it important?
I have seen over the years people come to our clinic, dogs come in on hand carts, in makeshift pushchairs, animals coming in. I've seen people crying who barely will tell you they can barely feed themselves, but their animal will eat before them. Why shouldn't they have a pet if they're willing to do so?
Oh, okay. And why is it important to neuter the animals before they leave?
That mainly is to stop the unwanted number of animals coming into JSPCA. We would get boxes, suitcases, crates full of cats, dogs. It's nothing for somebody to come in with a cage with 30 cats in it. What do I do with 30 cats? One cat will produce, a pair of cats, can produce, with their offspring, the triangle, can produce millions of animals. No, 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 no. I can't manage. Cats are now in Jamaica the biggest problem, animal-wise, that we have. They're on the beaches. They're using the beaches as sandboxes. Think about it. They're all over the place. They're all the hotels, the resorts. Their biggest number one complaint is, what do we do with the cats?
I would think that rats or dogs would be the biggest problems.
Cats, totally, 100%, are the biggest plague that this country has. And I'm serious. They are at plague proportions.
Well, we see cats at work too, so I understand.
Exactly. And I know even in this organization, we do 1 or 2 projects, cats.
Wow. So in the event where there's a hurricane or a natural disaster, what mechanisms are there to safeguard the animals?
Well, we do put out public service announcements beforehand. We try and push into the papers during the hurricane seasons, and I know a lot of organizations do as well, the JVMA, etc., as to what you can do to protect your livestock, because to me, it's a priority to protect our livestock industry. Because a nation that can't feed itself after a natural disaster is in problems.
All right. The ongoing drought in Jamaica, how does that affect JSPC?
It's killing me. We haven't had water for 3 days.
Wow.
And so we're waiting, hopefully, for a truck today. But it is really having a huge impact on us. It's our biggest problem, and it's been one we've been having for many, many months from the end of last year. Because of the roadworks, water supply was infrequent, and now it's just non-existent, really. So I can imagine how the farmers are going through it. Must be very difficult for them. I mean, even the pet trade industry in itself is having huge issues with the water problem. With animals, you have to have access to water. There's no if or but.
So what about the persons who are at home? Are you seeing increased cases of persons with their pets at home who are suffering from the drought and the water shortage? Are they coming in more to see you guys?
I don't think we're having as many problems with people because they don't have access to water. I do believe that we're having a lot more people coming in because of the level of the heat.
Okay.
Animals coming in with severe skin problems, conditions. But no, but those of us who have a large number of animals, it's very difficult.
Yeah, because you need the water to feed them. To
clean up the place and everything else. And like I said, today we haven't got a drop. This morning has not been good.
So does the truck come daily for you guys?
He was supposed to come yesterday.
Oh.
So we literally are without water at all. It's that bad. So I'm hoping it will ease soon, but as we know, some people believe there's no such thing as global warming.
Well, do you have to pay for the water?
We have had to pay for water, and we have been helped out a couple of times well by NWC. I don't think New Kingston would be a very nice place if JSPCA doesn't get access to water, to be honest.
Well, I can understand the heart of the area, but water is important, and I see that you guys are affected. I hope the truck comes daily.
Fingers crossed, yes. Well, if it doesn't, we will have no choice. We, by hook or by crook. JDF has actually had to come in and help us one time with a tank of water.
Wow.
Because we just couldn't get any.
So they'll be there, the backup call?
Everybody will be a backup call.
To find out. All right. Tell me about the diseases affecting both animals and humans.
Zoonosis. Well, there are quite a few. There are more than people can imagine. I mean, the commonest ones that we know over here that we worry about, I suppose, mostly, would be TB, would be leptospirosis. That when we have the heavy rains and the rats are all about, people don't change their animals' drinking water or there's a lot of stagnant water, animals are then exposed to the leptospirosis, and then rats also go on top of our tin goods and get into our food, etc. So you can get it from the rats. It could also affect your animals, and inadvertently, you could also get infected by your animals if they come into contact because you're not maintaining your rodents.
Tell me about the feline HIV.
If you're talking about the FIV. Okay. We don't test for it much in Jamaica. It is done by a test kit. Definitely it's here. But I mean, you're worried, most times people worry about things like cat scratch disease, things like toxoplasmosis, which is very common in pregnant women. They contract it possibly through the cats. They can be tested. If it's FIV, they can be maintained. In Europe, in general, people will maintain their animals with these conditions. In Jamaica, I would say 9.5 out of 10 do not know.
Well, I would like you to clarify what it is for the viewers who don't know.
Well,
what is it?
It is an immune problem. It is an immune condition. So you put it as HIV. Well, it's a feline version.
Yes.
Right. So in layman's terms, it is a feline version. So they are immune compromised. They are going to be more susceptible to illnesses and diseases. They have to be maintained. It is transmissible to other cats. So there's a lot of implications. But I think we would be quite surprised in Jamaica if we tested our cat population as to how many actually have it.
More or less?
I would think it's a lot more than we all suspect because of our large stray cat population. And cats do go out and fight, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Then you mentioned that they're the largest issues.
But it's not a worry for, am I going to get FIV from my cat? No. No, different one, different strain.
That's impossible, is it?
You can get other things maybe, but you're not going to get FIV.
From the cat.
No.
All right, tell us about the other diseases.
I said we do worry about the lepto. TB is always a possibility. Even in our abattoirs, our livestock have to be checked. The lungs are checked. We got to look out for TB. TB is still alive and well in Jamaica, but it's not. It's easily managed. Drugs have made a change than, say, 50 years ago when it was a humongous health problem. But it's still a concern. We also have to worry about, when I go into communities to do free spay and neuter clinics, I can usually look at the animals and the condition and their conditions that they have and pretty much know what conditions the community have. And if I see a lot of animals coming in with ringworm, I know that the children or the elderly are going to be more susceptible. The children are running around. If they're barefoot, they're going to pick up certain things. If there's hookworms, which usually there is, intestinal worms, so are the people going to have.
All right.
You hear of scabies outbreaks. If humans even have scabies, or animals, some people say they can't transmit, but I personally have picked up scabies and ringworm from animals, so I would debate that argument.
Wow. Well, you can speak from the personal perspective, so that's good enough for me. All right, we'll take another break. Interface will be right back. Welcome back to Interface. We have here with us Pamela Lawson, Managing Director of JSPCA. Now, we want to find out, who is Pamela Lawson? How did you get involved with animal care?
Me? Well, basically, I grew up in Jamaica, contrary to what everybody may think. I grew up in the US in Jamaica. I was born in England, never really lived there very long. Came over to Jamaica when I was about 9. Went back, of course, in the end of the 70s, and then I came back early 80s. I did nursing in the UK,
Okay.
It was what I think my mom wanted at the time, because my mom was a midwife, and then she eventually went on to be the head of Southeast England's midwifery service. So she wanted to have one child that actually went into nursing. And I did enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Came to Jamaica on a holiday because I was one of, those who, when all the nurses were on strike, I was working 18-hour days, and I came here for a holiday after a year and a half of non-stop work.
Wow.
And didn't go back. And I just started doing things like working at Ministry of Agriculture, hand rearing animals, macaws, cubs, lion cubs, didn't matter. Just a little sideline. And then I went into working into Gosman Group. Started overseeing all their animals. They don't argue back. They make it very clear when they're upset. And, animals love unconditionally. They're some of the nicest people I know.
So your love for animals began there. How did you get involved with JSPCA?
Actually, they were in need of somebody. In time, our chairman had nobody to oversee. They were in a bit of bind and asked if I could just help them out for, And I said, okay, I'll give you 3 months. That was in 2001. So, and I'm still there. JSPCA has got to be a labor of love. It cannot be from the perks. It is definitely a labor of love. But I think the work we do is important.
Mm-hmm.
We do have our regular spay and neuter, which in actual fact, JSPCA is recognized heavily worldwide in the animal welfare field for the work it does. We are disaster liaisons for the region. So when Haiti had an earthquake, where was I? I had to go to Haiti. We had to help them get back on their feet. When there were hurricanes up to last year, we were in the region. We were in St. Kitts, stuck in one hurricane. That wasn't fun. We didn't expect the second one to come around so quickly, and we couldn't get out.
Wow.
But a vet went over, myself, we went over there and we did what we could. We took drugs over. We helped people get back on their feet. St. Martin, as you remember, 2 years ago, was totally wiped out. Mm-hmm. When we had to take a boat from St. Kitts. And I wish I could tell you it was a nice luxury boat. It was not.
It's like a fisherman boat?
My young vet at the time was like, I will never do this again.
Wow.
For hours we were on that boat to get to St. Martin. And we had to get military permission to be able to land. But we had to get there without drugs and supplies and help. That's what we do. We help them. We try and help our neighbors to get back on their feet. When Cuba got hit one year, 2, 3 category 4 and 5s, we went and sent drugs, over $60,000 US worth of drugs, to help them get their livestock industry back up.
So do you see yourself outside of JSPCA?
Well, as
That's
I
where
get
your
older,
heart
it gets
is.
harder. It does get harder, but I don't see myself ever not helping them one way or the other. That's, to be honest, that's the truth. But it is hard work. It's 7 days a week. People call you morning, noon, and night. It doesn't matter. It could be 119. You have a problem. We go out there and we help. It's a long day.
Are there any stories you can tell us about any particular thing that made you joyful? Any case that you remember?
We get a lot. I mean, sometimes we get cases that come in that there's just no hope, or so we think. I guess where there's life, there's hope. Mm-hmm. And we pull them from the brink of death. I mean, we've had cases, I can never forget one night I got called out by 119. There was a problem. When I told him if I get out my bed, it better be a good problem. Because it was very early hours in the morning. Mm-hmm. And when I reached down, I think that somebody who was more of a prankster rather than a criminal did it. But when the police drove into a certain property, the gates closed behind them and they spent the night with 2 pit bulls on top of their vehicle. And I just when I went down there, I went, that's a difficult problem. We'll just wait till morning. Get comfortable, gentlemen.
And you sat there and waited?
Didn't go far, just in case they needed help, But we were able to sort out the problem before long. It was just that I thought they should sweat a little. They've called us, come out, there's a snake. And sure enough, one by one, ball python.
Wow.
The owner couldn't go into their home. So you'll be surprised. We get some odd calls. I've seen a truck reverse up to our veranda and a cow come out. So it's a colorful world. Our life is not dull. We've helped marine animals. We've done beachings. Spent nights out in the water with an animal, keeping it afloat until morning. Get a boat to take it out. Sea turtles. We've done everything. We've even treated the lions.
The lions.
We've knocked Lucas out. We've cleaned him up. He had a wound one time. Yeah. We basically, as long as there's a way to figure it out, we'll work it out when it comes to the animals.
We find a way.
Yes.
Clearly some miracle cases there. What are your views on mining in the cockpit country?
No. There is no view. It just cannot happen. It cannot be allowed. I'm sorry. You know what? We have to look at it this way. If we don't protect our environment, Jamaica is already, it's nowhere like it used to be. Mm-hmm. And if you go anywhere in the region, I mean, when we do a lot of the work we do in the other countries, you'll hear a lot of our Caribbean neighbors say, Jamaica is just so beautiful. And yet even they are now saying, we're seeing the changes. Our pollution. Have you ever seen our harbor after it rains? It is filthy, full of plastic. Mm-hmm. You want to go and mine? How are you going to return those plants, the flora, the fauna that is all destroyed by the mining? The strip mining? It's no, it cannot happen. It cannot be allowed.
What are some of the possible implications?
It's going to affect our environment totally. It's going to change it. You're also going to definitely have problems for some of your indigenous species, your birds. Our yellowbill, blackbills, etc. are only found here. The blackbill is already on the endangered list worldwide. It has to be sorted. You cannot allow it. I don't care who approves it. It has to be stopped.
It's unacceptable.
It is unacceptable. And those agencies in Jamaica who have the right to decide, they need to make the right decision. Because we've got to protect our environment for our children. Why shouldn't they have the right to enjoy it? You know the damage we're suffering now every time it rains. I live in the mountains. Every time it rains, the slightest thing, the hillside's coming down. We're blocked off. Deforestation. No, it's unacceptable. It is unacceptable. And I live in a forestry reserve.
Has the JSPCA spoken out about it, or are you guys willing to do something about it if needs be?
More than willing, and we teach it in the schools when we go into the schools. Mm-hmm. But we're more than willing to help support any environmental groups when it comes to protecting our environment in Jamaica. It's got to be done. I think it's everybody. I think it's even your responsibility to do so. Mm-hmm. It's all of our responsibility to protect our island. It's plain and simple. There is no if or but. And I was away when I heard about the big implosion about this mining situation in the cockpits. And I just thought, I'm not even going to pay any mind because it just can't happen.
So when you go into the schools, you mentioned that when you go into the schools, it's your job to educate.
It is.
About
animal welfare, the environment. We do get taken with us posters from NEPA. We take animals into the schools. We show them how to properly handle them, how to care for them. We tell them what they need to do. And we're working with the very young. We're taking them from even the little baby kids straight up. We do it straight into the high schools.
Oh.
And because you can change your children, you can't change your adults so easily.
Because I was about to ask you, at what levels do you go into schools?
Mainly the primary and preparatory levels, yes. But we do quite a few high schools. I notice it's mainly girls' schools. I'm just thought about it and I thought, no, it's mainly girls' schools.
So it could be...
Not the boys' schools. No, not the boys' high schools. No, it is the girls' schools.
Well, maybe you guys should approach these schools and let them know.
Yes.
Because I know some schools actually have an agriculture program.
Yes, they do.
So
St. Jago, etc., they do. And like I said, with all the schools, nearly all the schools, requiring community service. I guess in a way they feel that their kids are actually getting the exposure, quite a few of them. Because we do see a lot of children every year. We actually cannot take all the ones that we do get requesting.
Oh.
Because it's that many. For us to have more than a certain number, it puts them, first of all, puts us at risk, and it puts them at risk, because we still have to operate as normal. And if you take your eyes off a young adolescent, you know, anything can happen. There'll be a big sign on a kennel door that says, "Do not touch, dog will bite," and they will open that door. So we can't take our eyes off them.
So you basically weigh the pros and cons as to where you accept the invitations.
As not so much where, as to how many. It is a first come, first serve. If we've got certain numbers coming in, then we know that there's a point we have to say, we just don't have the space. We can't. It wouldn't be fair to the kids either, because we wouldn't be able to give them the exposure that they need.
All right, finally, I'm going to ask you to just say one final thing on the impact of non-indigenous species to Jamaica.
I think the one thing I would say to people about bringing in, whether it be, like I said, animals, plants, non-indigenous species of plants or animals into this country, be prepared for the implications, the repercussions if you do and something is wrong. Be prepared. You will have nobody to blame but yourself. You could actually affect the lives and welfare of this entire nation.
Well, there you have it. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for Interface today. Thank you so much, Miss Lawson, Pamela Lawson, Managing Director of JSPC. It was a pleasure having you. I'd like to thank my editorial and production teams. I'm Kimberly Broderick, wishing you pleasant viewing.